Welcome to Voices in Hyperspace. This is a podcast where friends get together and discuss everything sci-fi. Our current mission is to review the 90s hit sci-fi soap opera Babylon 5. I'm Legendary Black Lion.
I'm Captain No Asylum.
And it's just us two today. Sunday is not joining us this time. She'll catch us up next time. It's all good. You know, this episode was a little bit of a slower moving episode.
I feel like it needed to be because of the reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they would have just made that change and thrown it into the middle of something, you would have missed it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make it's a big deal, but it doesn't make a huge change in things. So slowing it down and making this huge process of revealing this new aspect of the show, of this character, it does kind of make sense from a storytelling. If you have done it from a different perspective, it would be annoying.
True. And I think it helps to ground a lot of the fantastical things that are happening in the show too. So instead of just this mysterious spiritual stuff happening, you kind of have an idea of where it's coming from. Like 90s shows did this weird thing from time to time because they always want you to at least have it in the back of your mind, like, oh, God is doing things, right? And this show does that, but kind of flips it, so you're like, oh, that's what's going on. We'll come back to that when the reveal is ready to happen. What this episode also does is retread a little bit of what we saw last episode. We see that a member of the Ministry of Peace, one of Babylon 5 security, is harassing a shop owner. And also, we're seeing that the shop owner is responding to the news that President Clark is accused of assassinating Luis Santiago. And there are posters being put up and stuff. And that guard is like, well, this is seditious. And Sheridan is like, bro, this is just a poster. He can say whatever he want to say.
I guess, again, to compare the technology 200 years before that, or 150 years earlier, we have memes. We don't have to put up pieces of paper on walls. We have
memes. And then people can respond to those memes by talking about.
Yeah.
People can respond. Yeah. So instead of Twitter, they have posters. I wonder how that would look now. Like maybe it's a LED board with the poster up. I don't know. That would be fun to explore.
I have access to the net because we have access to the net.
Yeah.
So it's just another offness of how they saw the future. Right, we're still sticking pieces of paper up with tape.
Yeah. What it should be is, if there are posters, the posters should be contraband, and it should also be kind of like propaganda graffiti. So there could be like a movement among the shop owners that are anti-President Clark. And then that would kind of give Nightwatch a reason to try to crack down on people, to try to figure out who it is.
It's like anyone who's agreeing with it.
Yeah.
If you choose to participate, you're still criminal in their eyes.
I like what Sheridan says here, because he's like, this guy has an opinion, and the guy's like, he's being seditious against the office of the president. And then Sheridan says there's a difference between the position and the person occupying it at the moment. And I'm like, this episode is coming at the exact right time for us. Because there's a difference between the position and the person occupying it. In America, not so much, but I guess, there are arguments that one person might be worse than another person. You definitely have to look at policy as well as personality, but the personality at the moment kind of overrides what's going on policy wise. He's running on a populist platform, and people kind of don't care what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, I've seen situations online where people are getting a lot of backlash because um, they're losing like their family members and stuff after the vote, and they're being told, and it's been online that rather no matter what side you're on, you're supposed to be okay with it and get along with your people because we're all Americans. And there are so many people that are like, but they don't care about me. So why should I give them the courtesy of my presence? Because there are some people who are like, I'm already telling you I'm not coming over for Christmas or vacation or Christmas or Thanksgiving. And they're just like, I'm just going to keep to myself because I can't be around you because you don't respect me. And then there's also women who have decided not to date, not to marry, not to have kids, all that stuff. So like, they're like, I'm not going to be bothered with people who don't want to respect me, who don't care about me. And they have every right to do that. And for those in charge to say, oh, you shouldn't hold anything against them for how they voted. Like, how they voted means a lot, especially in this case.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to, individual respect.
So it reminds me, remember I was watching, I'm still binge watching the TV show Andor, and my favorite character is Nemec, who writes the manifesto. And this is kind of like parts of this episode reminds me of that. What you're describing is people want to control other people's behavior. Right? It's like, oh, we won, therefore you need to like me. Why should I like you and what you stand for? It's not just an opinion, especially when people's livelihoods and existence was being disagreed upon. Some people look at it as apolitical, but that's also part of like a tyrannical government's agenda towards control. So there's this view of attacking the family as being seditious. And is like, oh, you don't want to come to Thanksgiving? Well, that is seditious.
We're already being seditious in Brooklyn.
Right. Like, that is against the empire. And here's the thing. That's the point. Like, the empire is not a good thing. Imperialism is something that we should be getting rid of. But there are people who have different ideas of what that is. What Nemec wrote was tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks, leaks, authority is brittle, oppression is the mask of fear. And that's the thing, like being afraid of losing your family, that's what it is. Like, oh yeah, we won, but at what cost? The cost is your humanity, your family, the things that you claim that you're supposed to be protecting. They're like, we don't like you anymore. What you've done is you've disenfranchised us. You've alienated us. So why should we stick around? And I know I'm harping on this. We'll get back to the episode in a second. But like for me personally, I don't celebrate many of these holidays at all.
Right.
It's like, learning where they come from and what they're all about is kind of like, oh, I don't celebrate genocides and massacres. So no, I'm not gonna do
it. Right. It's like I had multiple reasons for not wanting to celebrate in the first place. And I found that anyone in my life who already was like, I was trying not to be around, end up being on that side. Like, so it was already I already had started the boundaries behind this, or with this. So I'm like, okay, other people are doing what I've been doing. And there's been lots of people long before this who've been learning, like, there's certain people I don't need to have in my life for my peace, for my personal peace. And now it's become, it's so much broader. And now so many more people have similar reasons and not just individual family reasons for cutting people off because they need their own sanity, and being around certain people will disrupt that. So because they feel like that they have, and half of it is they feel like their family members feel like they should be able to tell them what their choices are. And when they're grown enough to say, I'm going to break away from you trying to make choices for me, they act like you're the one that's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's Darvo again.
Yeah. Because how dare you have autonomy?
Right.
How dare you have your own thoughts?
They only have power when they have control over you. So you saying I have boundaries is you taking that control away from them.
Yep.
Which if they, again, I'll keep saying it. If you have self-esteem, your esteem does not come from the power you have over others. It's the power you have over yourself.
Yes.
And half of the time, those things that people are trying to control you over have nothing to do with them. They just want power for no reason.
Yeah. All right. Back to the episode, because we kind of harped on that a little bit. But I mean, I think it's important for us to really spend time talking about what is being depicted as far as imperialism. What comes across next is we learn that Garibaldi is a jerk. First, because
he enjoyed it this time.
He is such a jerk because he's like, oh, yeah, Susan Ivanova, I'm glad you're here because your favorite person in the world is here and it's Bester. And it's like, why would you do this to me?
Well, Ivanova don't play like that. Well,
right.
Her, and she's not that type of playful person.
And so Bester is on his way to the station because he is tracking down another dangerous person. It's dangerous to security. It's dangerous to the people on the station.
In quotations.
Yep. And down below, there is a man who is tripping on balls and he's beating up stuff and he's going crazy. And so the episode gets off really on some multiple extremes. We got Space Nazi Bester coming. We got Space Nazi Ministry of Peace members hassling his storefront owners. Got Garibaldi. And so, yeah. And so what this does, it prompts the War Council to get together and start to kind of figure out what to do, because their whole thing is like, well, Bester's coming. We can't have a stray thought about what we're doing. And he's basically the enemy. So this is bad. I thought it was just kind of cool because Delenn is like, I've never met Bester. And I did not realize that they never met. They never shared a scene together ever. And so they fill her in on what's happening. And this is where Ivanova is like, oh, I know what to do. Let's kill him. And they keep over talking her, and she says it again. We should blow up his shuttle. And she's not joking. She is dead serious.
Because the greatest person in the universe is like, oh no, I don't want to kill anybody, regardless of who it is. And then he changes his mind after me. Wait, I'll get ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll get there. What Delenn proposes is that they're going to have a way to protect the War Council from telepathic scans. We also get the arrival of Veer on the station. He has returned from Minbar momentarily. He's met by Lando, and they're just talking about his short stay. Nothing really interesting is happening here other than Veer is dressed differently, and he's wearing Minbari fashion. And Lando is like, oh, make sure you just wear that there in Minbar because you need to look like a Centauri. And this is important. Lando is always going to hammer home the importance of his people, his nationalism, and his like ethnocentrism. But he does it specifically with Veer. And the reason why is Veer is not an extremist like Lando is.
Yeah.
Then we get the disturbance in Midlab. This is where the best human being in the entire galaxy, Franklin, is treating two patients who are tripping balls. He's very short-tempered with his med tech. What they find out is these two patients have been hallucinating. And one was a rock climber that had broken her leg, and the other one was reliving her memories. And it turns out that this is due to a dangerous drug that grants temporary telepathic abilities known as dust. If you know anything about sci-fi, this is just kind of like the catch-all word for drugs. I think this goes all the way back to like if it doesn't go to Dune, it's like kind of in that time period where sci-fi authors is like, yeah, dust. Because on
Dune has spice, right?
Dune has spice.
Basically the same thing.
Yeah, and I think Star Wars copies spice, but in other shows, and I can't remember them, they have dust. On Mass Effect, they have red dust. It's the same thing. It gives you temporary telepathic powers. All of it does that, which is, I mean, on one hand, it's like, wow, get some originality, but I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to say that this telepathy thing can be achieved artificially, but there are some trade-offs.
And culturally, it sounds like, because there were a lot of cultures outside of Western civilization that had ground herbs that were in a powder, like a dust, spices, and other herbs that were made into compounds to do certain things.
Yeah.
And this was always demonized, but at the same time, they fighting over it. And it shows in the sci-fi where it's either demonized or it's put on a pedestal. And that's exactly what happened to spices and herbs in the real world.
Psilocybin and ayahuasca. No, but like they're like, there are traditional medicine practices that have been demonized because of their mind-altering effects.
And then there's some that are demonized just because of like racism, like MSG.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Calling cannabis marijuana was for racist reasons.
Yeah. And there was the wacky weed. They called it that.
Yeah.
Oh, they call it a weed. But marijuana was just the Spanish word for it, though I don't know what marijuana actually transfers to.
But that's the thing. They used the Spanish word of it because they wanted to associate it with
the Mexican
with Mexican immigrants. But then they also wanted to associate it with like the jazz movement because they thought that jazz, which was Negro music at the time, was evil and it's gonna get you high and you're gonna lose your mind. Yeah. Yep.
Oh. Yeah.
Anyway.
And then also, there's also a movement where chefs wanted to bring out the natural flavor of foods.
Oh, so they stayed away from spices.
So this is where we get stuff like boiled chicken and stuff. And this is where the tradition or stereotype, however you want to see it, of certain people not seasoning their food. But in other traditions, like in Yoruba, certain herbs go with certain foods based on which deity you're celebrating.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. Like they have different nights, like in the Norse mythology that we know because we use it. Different gods have different days, and you'll have there are different meals to go with them that for those evenings, and some of them like certain spices, or some of them don't like certain spices, and you would use them or not use them based on whose night it was.
Wow. That is surprisingly connected to this episode's revelation. We'll keep mark. Yeah, let's bookmark that. Bester's ship is approaching, and Ivanova is in CNC, and she just clears CNC's like, everybody get out. Get the fuck out. And then she takes over control, and she's like, I know people like you. You'll never stop. We need to get rid of you. And she basically targets Bester's ship, and just as she's about to say fire, Sheridan walks in and stops her. This is the third time she tried to get that man murdered, like on purpose. And Sheridan, oh yeah,
she's gonna try no matter what. Right? She's just, that man need to die.
Right. And Sheridan, he calms her down, and he's like, look, we'll find another way. Also, you don't want to throw away your career. And she's like, I don't care about my career. Fuck this guy. We skip away, and we see that Bester gets onto the station, and he's like, Sheridan, he's like, I don't know what was going on, but I was out there by myself with no communication, and I felt this extreme sense of my personal being in danger. And it was just kind of like, oh man, forget all that. That's nothing for you to worry about. Because when he walks into Sheridan's office, he meets the work staff, the War Council, and they are flanked by so many Minbari telepaths.
This is the second time they've countered a human telepath with a telepath from another planet.
Mm-hmm.
This time they had a whole gang of them.
A whole bunch of them. And Besher's like, what the fuck? I don't think this is a good idea. And Sheridan is like, oh, you see, we've got a little bit of a backup because, we didn't want to be at a disadvantage with you being here, Mr. Bester. Also, Sheridan is holding Bester responsible for Talia Winters because remember, she was taken over and turned into a sleeper agent that was activated with a telepathic message. And Bester is just kind of like, well, that really wasn't us. With his lion ass.
And before me.
Right.
How?
Right.
Wait, because you were doing this when she got. No, let me not say that. I might be wrong.
As a kid. Well, I don't know. I feel like she was being conditioned as a child. But
she was.
But they're trying to say that she wasn't, and that it was like
he wasn't
something else. I don't know.
To be a part of that at the time.
Yeah. But whatever the case, Sheridan basically tells him, like, we don't trust you. We held you responsible for Talia. Bester suggests that Talia, after she was debriefed, that she was dissected by Psychor. Because remember, they are obsessed about making new telepaths, and they're trying to figure out, like, oh, well, maybe we can just make people into telepaths. I don't know. But we're not kind of giving too much of a conclusion on that. Also, Bester could just be lying anyway, to get a rise out of them. And
he loves doing that.
Always. He's always pushing buttons. And so Sheridan gives Bester an ultimatum. He's like, look, we either are going to keep these people around us, the telepaths, which Bester is like, there is no way we can conduct business with them around. But Sheridan ain't hearing it. He's like, we can either give you the sleeper medicine to suppress your telepathic abilities, or we can make sure that these Minbari telepaths are around. And so Bester's like, he is reluctantly giving into it, but he's kind of like making a show out of it. It's like, you could trust me. I'm your friend. Yeah, I'll take the medicine. It's no big deal. The story with the Centauri is a little weird because we're starting to see the way Lando is handling things, but we've seen this before. Delenn is mediating some negotiations between the Centauri and the Drazi. The Drazi have been the ones warning the galaxy about the Centauri for a long time. They've been in conflict because of Centauri aggression. Now they're at these negotiations. The Centauri want the 7 colony worlds in Drazi space, and the Drazi are very upset. They're like, why do you want all 7 of our worlds? And Lando is like, well, we said we needed a buffer zone, but we asked for it last time. Y'all said no, but now we need more because we put so much investment into that space. Y'all just got to give it up. I felt like Delenn was doing the both sides thing with this mediation because she's talking to a war criminal and the victims of war crimes, and she's like, oh, we got to listen to both sides. And I'm like, this is so weak. This is not a way to peace in the galaxy. It really made me kind of wonder, like, I guess I know what the writers were trying to get across, which is that the Centauri are super strong, but it made Delenn look stupid.
Yeah, like with the way that her culture is and the religious caste, she's not going to be suited for this.
Yeah.
If there were 2 people who are trying to find peace, then she would be perfect for it. But you've got one person who wants peace and one person that just wants to take over. You are not the right person for it. Sheridan would be better for that. But like,
yeah,
no, she's good at solving problems that are being looked for. Mechanical stuff, like looking at what's there and stating what's there and highlighting the good parts of things.
Yeah.
You can't do that with the Centauri.
Yeah. As Lando is leaving, he threatens the Drazi. He's like, remember what happened to the Narn? You don't want that to happen to you. And I'm just like, he just threatened to do war crimes even more. And Delenn
Mhm.
and Veer are taking such a weak perspective of it because Delenn is like, oh, well, one is foolish and the other one is frightened. And Veer's like, which one is which? That's the hard part. And I'm like, the frightened people are the ones being attacked by the Centauri. Like, that is very straight up.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, the Satari are frightened too. I mean, it's physical fright because they're actually being attacked. But the reason why the Centauri are attacking everyone else is because they're frightened. And
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to highlight why people do evil things because
I
they're
mean,
hurt or hurt people, hurt people. And then also her being there, her and her assistant being there also kind of helps with the deception that the Centauri like to do.
yeah.
Because like when you're dealing with especially like a narcissist or just somebody who's trying to be controlling, especially the way he does it, because he's the definition of Darbo. He'll say things, and then if it was a closed session, he can come back and say, "Oh no, you didn't say this, you said that," and come up with his own ink on paper saying, "Okay, we can do this." But with her there, they at least have a witness, and at this point, because they are so scared, one of the biggest things that they can get is backup and support. And if that's all you're willing to look for and not a fight, she's actually perfect for backup and support. So her letting him say what he needs to say in front of her keeps him from doing all his manipulative stuff. They're not going to get any further, but he's not going to get any further. So it's a so sad process. Yeah. You would wish that they could just stand up to him and be like, stop attacking him. You're being a jerk. But if you do, and then you do that, he's going to start playing the victim. Oh, but they did this, blah, 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 blah. So all you can do at this point is stop them from doing more.
Yeah.
And the one thing you can do, because he does that thing that a lot of manipulative people do. They try to isolate you.
Yeah.
So by him saying he keeps like complaining that they're there because he can't isolate them and intimidate them by themselves.
I mean, this is kind of, again, going back to what I shared earlier. Tyranny requires constant effort, and oppression is the mask of fear. So I agree. Yeah, Lando's afraid. He's afraid for his life. He's afraid for the Republic. And so he has to put on this strong mask to pretend that, he's in control. And unfortunately, the Drazi have to be buying it because they're like, we need people to see him lying.
Right. And that's what happens to people in like abusive relationships. And people are like, well, why did you stay with them? Oh, for all that time. But all that time that they were staying with them, trying to get away from them, those same people are saying, oh, it's not that bad because you didn't see what was going on.
Right.
Right. When you're not there, that's when they're doing the worst stuff. And then they thought you were supposed to stand up to them by yourself. Right.
Yeah. Yep. And this is where Veer has a discussion with Dylan, like, hey, Lando could benefit from a visit to the Minbari. And Lanier's like, no, relocating cannot cleanse the darkness in one's heart. And that's a really good point. Also, because Lando is intending to remain in the dark. Like, he believes this is destiny. So we see with his telepathic ability suppressed, Bester is being he's briefing the command crew on the mission that someone is trafficking dust, and it helps people have temporary telepathic abilities. And Psycor believes that the distributor is targeting aliens. So this is this is like a piece of a breadcrumb for what is literally about to be revealed. But, it's whatever. And Bester's right. But, and they're walking in the market, Garibaldi and Bester having this brief little discussion about Psycor and everything. But as far as Bester's intel, he is right on the money because the dealer for the dust is meeting with Jakar. Jakar absolutely loves meeting with black market dealers, black market weapons, people, drugs. Jakar's a thug, man. Like,
But he by any means necessary. Those are the means necessary because it's the perspective of who's the rebel. Because he's going up against the powers that be. He is the rebel, and therefore he has to go not through the powers that be in order to get what he needs.
Yeah, get what he wants. He is kind of like the anti-hero. And we find out Jakar is chastising this guy. He's like, look, we said no commercial sales until the conclusion of the agreement. Cause like, look, you got like weird humans all over the station acting up. And the guy's like, man, this is going to be cool. I just need to make some money on the side. But then they discuss dust and how it may affect the Narn. Cause it said, he's talking about it's genetically created to affect humans. We don't even know if Narn have the correct gene for telepathy. And Jakar goes, we used to have telepaths long ago before they were destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm not going to pay you until after we test it, which, man, like I said, Jakar's a thug. He's getting this drug and he's like, I'm not going to pay you for it. I'll let you know how it turns out. And so he get hopped up on the dust. And my question is, okay, so they talk about temporarily getting telepathy, but what about the other side effects? Because Jakar looked like he was impervious to pain and he had super strength.
Well, they also said it doesn't just give you temporary in some people, but Vester was saying that they use it in order to open up the powers of latent telepaths. And
wow.
The Narn are actually pretty big and strong anyway.
Yeah.
Jakar is a pretty reserved person when he wants to be, and hopped up on drugs and using his telepathic abilities to figure out that Lando has something to do with this may have just enraged him enough to be that strong. He had those mommy powers. I don't know how to describe it. Like people say that like women who have children are in danger, like on some occasions will get like the superhero strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe the telepathic abilities that's
yeah. Because Jakar goes and he's hunting down Lando. And I wrote on here that he's tripping balls. In the meantime, Garibaldi and Bester are interrogating Ashi Van Trock, another Asian person, being a character, being a gangster. Man, yeah, they have a lot of gangster characters on this episode, by the way.
Yeah.
They're pressuring him, which, okay, Bester pretends that he's reading Ashi's mind, and Ashi is like agitated, and he's like, you can't do that. Garibaldi's going along with it, and the information comes out that the drug dealer Lindstrom is in red sector, has the dust shipment due today, and so that they're off to go confront him. Garibaldi pulls Bester aside and is like, how did you know he was lying? Which, come on, Garibaldi. This is your job, bro.
That's what he does.
Yeah.
The same dude. Like, yeah, you know how. You're doing me in his face.
But yeah, he was confronting Bester because he's like, oh, so you're just using your badge and your uniform. And Bester's like, yeah, kind of like you use your badge and your uniform. And I'm like, that's what you get for being that close to a Nazi. Garibaldi. And yeah, Bester has to be like super slimy and gross about it too. Then we get to see what's going on in Lando's quarters, and they're having a discussion about Veer's report And Lando is suggesting, like, hey, all of this stuff that you write about the Minbari, we need to change that. You need to make it acceptable to the Centaurum because they're a repressive force and they won't like anything that you say. And Veer is frustrated. It's like, all of this is good stuff. And Lando is like, you need to talk like a Centauri. And everything that he's changing has Veer respond like, what? You're just like, are you trying to make me mad on purpose? And Lando does it again. He says something that's very important that he doesn't listen to himself. He goes, the universe is already mad. Anything else will be redundant. It's like, bro, you are the redundant one.
Mm-hmm. You know, and it kind of like hurts a little bit when they say stuff like that. Like, oh, you need to talk like a Centauri when like he is a Centauri and he's Tom Heat. So maybe you should consider him. Because I grew up one of those kids where people are like, oh, you talk white.
Ah, yeah.
And you don't talk like a black person. I'm like, I am a black person.
Right.
Like, if someone heard me without seeing me, they would assume I was black, maybe. I would hope.
No, 100%. 100%. People, if they heard you on the phone. Because
I pronunciate. At least I try to.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't. But that's more of a my tongue is too big for my mouth thing.
I understand. Anyway, it's not like you're code switching or anything like that. It's just how you are. Yeah. Veer goes off to the door and Lando is distracted. But then when he comes around, you hear this bump and Lando's like, what is going on? And there's Jakar. High on dust, high out of his mind on this PCP. Holding Veer in the air with one arm.
You know, PCP is a perfect analogy for it. Especially with the experiments people were doing in the 60s and 70s on like the mental abilities and stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's slowly approaching Lando. Lando's not going anywhere. Bro doesn't know. Like, of all the close calls that Lando's had, he's not getting out of this one. We quickly switch to a scene where Bester and Garibaldi set up Lindstrom for the dust shipment, and we get like some of the worst acting from drug dealers in this scene. I really wish I knew what was going on because these guys seem more like stunt actors. You know what I mean? They've been in front of the camera before, but the way that they're acting is terrible. Like, it was one take, and they were like, "That's good enough."
For me, it looked like the voice actors for like a kid's show trying to do this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's what it sounded like. Or a parody. If it was a parody, that's how they would be acting.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me more of a parody. Yeah. One of the discussions they're having, Garibaldi talks about how important due process is. And I'm like, this is very ironic coming from you who just interrogated and tortured a guy to get the information for this drug deal. Like, due process. What, after you beat the shit out of somebody? Like I don't know. But they arrest the drug dealers. They get like this suitcase full of dust, which I can only guess how expensive that is, you know, traveling around in space with that. And Bester says the one thing that you know what's going to happen. He goes, luckily we got to this before anybody got hurt. And then we see a scene where Lando is getting the shit beat out of him. He's he's waking up from his beating. Veer is out, but Jakar is sitting there with him, and he's been using his telepathic abilities. And they're having this. Jakar is demanding, like, I want to know who has been helping you, how you've been doing this stuff. I need to know who you've been talking to. And so he uses his abilities, and he finds out that it's Mr. Morden that helped with the attacks. Say it again.
He does a mind melt.
The Vulcan mind melt.
Mr. Narn mind melt.
Well, the way that Andreas is acting in this part, because he is like unhinged completely, right? He's like, I want all of it. And so he like forces the telepathy. He's doing kind of like he's like, I don't know. Remember when in did you see Wolverine and Deadpool or Deadpool and Wolverine where Cassandra Nova's putting her fingers in people's heads?
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of what he's doing. He's doing like a telepathic assault to to see what's going on in Lando's head, and he's seeing all of the visions of the Narn homeworld, the people that he's spoken to. This is where we find out that Lando got his job as an ambassador. I think I got these in the wrong order, but it's all good. But we find out that Lando got his job as an ambassador from the Centauri because nobody else wanted the job. It was very dangerous. Babylon 5 is a bad luck place. Good luck. You're the one who get the job. So, and
don't die.
Yeah. Here's $20. Don't die. And Jakar makes fun of him for it. You know, he pushes even more as he's raging through Lando's mind. Jakar he experiences the different visions, and then all of a sudden he sees one of his own father dying. There's a tree, and his father is tied to the tree, hanging from it. And the vision urges Jakar to break the cycle of hatred between those two. And it's, on the one hand, it's like, okay, this is Jakar's, like, for lack of a better word, this is either his, it's not his come to Jesus moment. It's his vision of Elijah Muhammad in prison, like Malcolm X, right?
Mecca moment.
Yeah.
That's okay. We were on the same page because I was gonna say Mecca.
Yeah. There you go. And Jakar is really like conflicted, and he believes that his actions are honoring his father, but his father tells him like, no, you're not honoring me. And he questions this and warns that his current path can lead the Narn race to destruction. And he says if both sides are destroyed, then it doesn't matter who started it because no one will be there to tell anybody's story. And he says you cannot see the battle for what it is. And the parts that stood out to me was when he said some of us must be sacrificed if any are to be saved. And that hurt so bad because I'm like, Jakar has the one person responsible in his grips, and he's being told, no, don't do that. And he gets the message that he has the chance to become something greater, something more noble. And this is kind of like that conversion moment. Like, okay, some people have to be sacrificed, which means you have to be a martyr, but you have the opportunity to become something more noble, something greater. And then Jakar sees the angelic form of Jaquan flying away, and it looks a little familiar. Do you recognize the image that he sees?
That's how he saw Ambassador Kosh when he saved the captain.
Sheridan. Yep.
Yeah.
Jakar asks, like, where have you been? Why haven't I seen you before? And he says, I have always been here, which is exactly what Kosh says. He flies away. Jakar wakes up next to an unconscious Lando, and he starts crying, and he's just completely crushed, emotionally spent. And we see, Ambassador Kosh gliding away because he saw the whole thing. So Kosh was there manipulating this dude.
Because he's always there.
I have always been here. When we come back, we see that Franklin and Vera are discussing Lando and MedLab because, Lando keeps getting his ass kicked. He keeps getting blown up, stuck in elevators, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, for me. It gives him opportunities to play the victim. He's keeping that in his purple folder.
He's the luckiest piece of shit in the galaxy. He keeps getting saved. Man. Veer keeps discussing how he has hope for Lando. He's like, you just need to know him the way I know him. Which, if you knew Lando the way Veer knew him, I don't know. Like, I would have gave up on him.
I think Veer is looking at him through Veer's eyes, and Veer has hope for. Veer is just a hopeful, sweet guy, and he sees that in everyone else, just like Lando sees the evil in everybody, and the manipulativeness in everybody. And Veer's the complete opposite. He wants to see hope in people. It would hurt him to realize that, yeah, he's just an asshole.
Also, I wanted to kind of touch on something because we talked about Franklin earlier. Remember earlier how he was getting very short and hostile with his med lab tech? Remember, Franklin is addicted to stims, and he probably hasn't slept in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So his temperature is short, his cortisol is spiked. So he, granted, yes, the almighty Franklin is the greatest human being in the galaxy, but he has his limits.
He's still a human.
Still a
He's
human.
trying to save the galaxy, and you are a Newman. You need sleep and food.
Yeah.
To contrast the whole, like, this might be a filler episode, well, kind of, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking on my TikTok about how much story-driven pieces contrast to character-driven pieces. Like, there kind of has to be a balance. So in Babylon 5, they do this to balance it out. Like, some episodes are very story-driven, and then some episodes are very character-driven. This is most definitely a very character-driven story because it doesn't push the story. It's pushing the characters and their interactions. And then after this, because we've seen these aspects of their character, when it affects what everybody's doing, the story part, we can actually care. Because if we didn't have these parts that was putting a spotlight on their interactions and how they deal with certain things, we wouldn't care so much. We wouldn't be invested as much when something hits the fan. Because if something hits the fan and people just did their jobs because I'm the captain, I'm security, and I'm this, we wouldn't care. But since we now know the captain has this personality and she wants to kill this person and he knows this about somebody else while all this is happening, we stay invested in the story because the people are the ones doing the stuff in the story. That was a long explanation.
Yeah. No, it's good because you do see like not much movement happens except for one character. The rest of it is we see the status of everybody and we're reminded of what people have gone through. We're reminded that Ivanova, a latent telepath, absolutely hates Bester, wants to kill the guy, gonna try to kill the guy.
We get to see her kill him again. We get to see her use her power to kill him, to try to kill him.
Yeah. Yes.
I think we see a lot in Lanier because he does stand up to Valari a bit more than he normally does.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually expressing to other people that he has hopes for him.
Yeah, but he's also kind of he's pointing out like the way that people suggest that you fix them, you can't fix them.
Well, no. Well, that still explains his personality and where his mind is right now.
Yeah. Sheridan doesn't have much to do. He saved Bester's life, and that's about it. They completely depower Delin. She's put in an impossible situation where all of her fun spiritual talk does not mean a thing. Franklin is still yelling at people. He's yelling at Black Lady, and he needs to leave that Black Lady alone. She's a good doctor, damn it. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah, it's also kind of a reminder that he's on stems.
That
he doesn't just go back to being the doctor that we know that we were introduced to. He's not a stereotypical character. We have depth because we understand something about him.
Kind of the world building too is there are acceptable drugs and there are non acceptable drugs. He can do stems all he wants. Granted, like, you know, having a problem can get him in trouble, but for the most part, he's not going to go to jail. It's not like him taking dust. If he took dust for a reason, you know, because they sentenced Jakar for it, for possession and use of it, right?
Yeah.
So there are state sanctioned drugs, and then there are state controlled drugs, illegal drugs. Sounds a little familiar. I don't know.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jakar being sentenced, he's sentenced 60 days in prison, and he's on like, he accepts it because he doesn't, you know, he doesn't want counsel. He's going to do his 60 days. No problem. Remember, Jakar's a thug, but his whole thing is, he's had his spiritual awakening now. Garibaldi is like, hey, you know, maybe, you know, you're going to prison now. Maybe you want your book back. And Jakar's like,
and read in there. Well, you know, Jakar had to go to prison because he's the alien Malcolm X.
yeah, exactly. And Jakar's like, no, you keep the book because I think I'm closer to the source now.
Mm-hmm.
Yo. In MedLab, Lando's recovering from getting shit kicked out of him. And Vera's like, I gotta go for Minbar. You know, I gotta get back for the special ceremony. And Lando is advising Vera to not let people make a joke out of him. And the thing is, Lando's the one that makes a joke out of Vera. But I think what he's trying to say is like, you gotta stay a Centauri. You gotta stay strong. Which I get what he's trying to do, but he's just completely wrong in this situation.
His compassion is a joke to him.
Yes, exactly. His compassion, his acceptance of other cultures, and like, sounds like Veer is having a good time on Minbar. Like, that's his people. That's where he wants to be.
And I feel like if the Veer we knew had left to Minbar and then came back to be the strong, righteous, independent, I'm going to stand up to him no matter what, and these are the rules, blah, blah, blah. There would be something missing. There needed to be a stage in his development. And I feel like this episode was a huge step towards bringing him to a new, stronger Veer who's going to actually have impact on the events instead of just standing by and assisting or seeing things. He didn't do anything at first but worry. And now he's like coming into his own, and we get to see that stage of him coming into his own and finding a place where he's comfortable, where he's not bent over the whole time.
Yeah.
Like this episode is weird because I noticed like his physique a little bit, but you really notice it now because he's not hunched over the whole time.
Yeah, that's what you're going to maybe go back on once, because maybe there's like a very subtle character development.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing in most of it. Because like, and even with Delenn, even though she's not throwing around her power, she has been more comfortable with being the human hybrid, and also being comfortable with seeing what others are doing, because she is coming from both sides, being now human and Minbari.
Mm-hmm.
Her interest is in seeing both sides, even if they're bad, because she is now the species of both sides who were killing each other. Like the Minbari were going to wipe out the humans. And now she's being a part of that species. So from her perspective, having empathy for both sides, and that's why they keep saying he's scared, because it's not just, he just wants to intimidate people. It's why he's intimidating people, why he feels like he needs to have all this power, because he feels like he needs to defend himself from everybody who's not a threat to him, because he's scared they're going to be a threat. And then after that happens, Jakar comes to come beat him up, and he's a pitiful little pisshead.
Yeah, he's a snarling worm.
We've seen other Narn, granted they're bigger and stronger, get beat up much worse.
Yeah, those little
stare you in the fucking eye. But he's in there.
But that's the thing too, because the the Centauri, like those dudes are some fighters. They be karate kicking people in the throat. I guess that's the new generation because Lando, he didn't have a sword nearby, so he was scared.
I mean, what's he gonna do with this? Like, that was the equivalent of fencing. Like, okay, it is a fighting form, but like in a real fight, I guess, in the guerrilla war, what are you gonna do with your little stick?
Right.
You can't.
You don't have
either
like
kill them or just die. Like,
well,
those are your choices.
Yeah. And I also think like, when Jakar's hopped up on his dust, would being stabbed do much? I'm sorry. I agree with you that the Narn are strong, so it makes me wonder how much being stabbed would have actually affected him. Because we did see Jakar get stabbed before, and he walked it off like what nothing happened. So,
and then like with the way the Centauri talk about the Narn is like, if we don't get a hold of their like after they blew up the planet, they still needed to intimidate them. And he's like, even like Veer was like what else can you take from them? It's like their pride, like that. As long as they still think that they're strong, they're still gonna kick our butts.
Yeah. Yep.
And they know that.
Yeah. So wrapping up the episode, Garibaldi escorts Bester out of the station onto the dock, and after Garibaldi departs, Bester meets another Psi Corps officer, and he's explaining how dust was created to make other telepaths, like you said, but it wasn't very successful. And they were just glad that it was out of alien hands. They're like, we just, he's very human centric. So he's like, it's a good thing that we got our hands on it and not these filthy, stinking aliens. And in prison, Jakar is reflecting on everything he had experienced. And you can hear like the echo of what the words were, which are, some must be sacrificed if all are to be saved. And we wrap it up. So we've basically set up Jakar to become some type of martyr, but also a spiritual figure. And it'll be exciting because remember, all of his other power was taken away from him. Anytime he would go for brute force, try to be sneaky, all that stuff would be taken away from him. Even when you try to use superpowers. But now he's in a position where he's got the power of God on his side, and we'll see how that works.
Well, I mean, and especially when it comes to manipulative people, your biggest power is knowledge. If you have your facts, if you have your data, and you can come with receipts that they can't rebuke or talk their way around, no brute force, no other authority can take them down. You have to fight them with their own crap. And the only way he's going to do that is probably with telepathic powers.
Like I said, it seemed like only one character really got a lot of movement. The others were kind of doing their thing. But, I thought the story was interesting. It is foreshadowing some bigger things later in the series. So I don't think it's the worst episode. It does come across as a filler or kind of like a side mission, if you will. So I think we'll refer back to this one once we address what some of these story threads are doing.
Yeah, I thought the personalities coming out was very important. I think that was what drove this story and why it was written, to drive the different personalities and remind you of who they are and how they react to things.
Yeah, I mean, them having Bester kind of took the personalities aspect of it and made it stronger. Because Bester, like, first of all, Walter Koenig is a phenomenal actor. He devoured the role of Bester. We'll see him a couple more times. And love every second of it. Love/hate every second of it.
Power. And even he loses his power.
Yeah.
So maybe that was the theme of what do you do when your main power is lost?
Or how do we get all these characters into like one space and take away the advantages that they have? Because I mean, if Bester could just use his power, he would have ruined everything. That's kind of why this episode started, right? So they had a creative way of depowering everybody except for Lando.
Good.
Well, they beat up Lando.
They beat up Lando, yeah.
Yep.
So everyone gets to show their underlying strengths and not their obvious strengths.
Yeah.
Except for Lanier.
Oh yeah.
Where's Lanier? He's info dumping. That's what he does.
Yeah, he's info dumping, but he's showing the strength in. He's showing strength by opposing the Empire by saying like, "Hey, there's this better way that we can be, and I'm gonna tell you whether you like it or not." Huh?
Yeah. Did I say the wrong name?
Veer?
But I meant, yeah.
What did I say?
The lens assistant.
Oh,
No,
Linerick?
you said, yeah. That's what I was talking about.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
All he did. That's all he got to do.
Yeah. Lanier is still lamenting saving Lando's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they have different views on how to do it. So,
Yeah.
Which is good. Because y'all need to brainstorm that a lot.
Yeah. All right, let's get out of here. Thank you all for joining us for this edition of Voices in Hyperspace. You can catch us on all of the streaming services. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. Just follow us at Voices in Hyperspace. Be sure to like, share, and follow. I am Legendary Black Lion. I'm very active on Instagram, and I am on Blue Social. Is that the name of it? Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky. So
Blue Sky?
yeah, Blue Sky.
Thinking, it replaced Twitter. It's Bluebird. No, it's not. It's Blue Sky. Okay.
It's Blue Sky. But I bet, you know what? Some people call it Bluebird because I mean, it's basically Twitter, but it's not Elon's Twitter. So,
Word.
Yeah. Continue the conversation, joining our Facebook group, and let's have some fun with that.
I'm Captain Melasilu. You can find me at melsrebellion.com, where there are links to most of my socials and my books.
And thank y'all very much. Sunday will be joining us next time, so do not be in despair. We'll see her next time. All right, y'all take it easy. See you out there.